going over how do the transits impact your chart. I want you to look at your chart, and we're going to talk a little bit about how you can listen to the energy forecasts that we do every week, or how you can look at what's transiting in the celestial weather and how that impacts your chart. People ask me this all the time, so I thought this would be a good time for us to review so that you can start to really see what themes might be coming up for you personally, in addition to some of the themes that are coming up for us on the collective level. So when you look at your chart, anything that's colored in, we call it defined. That's energy that you have consistent access to. Doesn't mean you don't grow and evolve. You are growing and evolving that part. These are themes in your life that you're going to be playing with over the entire lifespan of your story. So your definition is consistent, it's colored in, it's what you're here to give the world, and it's also part of your soul curriculum. Anything in your chart that's white, we call that open or undefined. Anything that's white on your chart is where you're taking energy and information in from the world around you. Where we have white on our chart or openness in our chart, that's where we're taking it in and amplifying it. So we don't just experience it, we amplify it, and it varies. And it varies depending on who we're with and where we are, and also on the transits. So when certain planets move and highlight certain gates, it can also impact the open centers on our chart. Your openness, because we feel it so intensely, we oftentimes get confused and we think we are what's open in our chart. But your openness actually represents a lot of times the curriculum for your relationship lessons, and it brings you its own unique themes that you have to learn to play with and work with. So transits, when the planets move, they bring personal themes. And of course, those personal themes are going to be experienced in how you see the world, is going to be experienced in what gets played out in the collective arena, what's on the news, what's happening in the world. And it, of course, impacts global themes as well. So you want to know, you want to understand how those transits are impacting you, and most importantly, what lessons the planets are bringing you as they move around the gates in the human design system. So let's talk for just a minute about how the transits connect with your natal chart. So on the left, this is an example of a natal chart. So this is the chart you were born with. This is the chart you run wherever you get your chart run. This is your chart. So hopefully get your chart out right now and look at your chart. And what you're going to see is that your chart, the planets when you look at the left numbers and the right numbers, those numbers represent the gates in your natal chart. We're not going to look at the decimal point to the right of the big numbers, so just ignore those for tonight. Just look at the whole numbers. Those represent gates, right? And when those gates are colored in, it means at the moment of your birth, planets were lighting up those gates. That was the position that the planets were in at the moment of your birth. On the right-hand side is a chart that represents the planetary transits on July the 7th. So these are last Monday's transits, right? So you'll see that the sun, which is the circle with the dot in it on the top, was highlighting the gate 53. The earth was grounding us in the gate 54. I want you to know that the transits are only calculated on the day that we're looking at. All right, so they're only calculated on the day that we're looking at in your human design. In your natal chart, remember, there's two calculations on that chart. There's the day you were born, that's your soul purpose definition. And then there's the life purpose definition that actually drops in about 3 months before you're born, or 88 astrological degrees prior to your birth. So you actually have two important calculations. But the transits, we only look at where the sun is on the day of the transit. Now, when we put these together, what you'll get is a chart that kind of looks like the chart in the middle. Now, I recommend that if you're going to start following the transits on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, that either memorize your chart or get a bunch of copy out a bunch of charts, because you can color this in. I've had students that have done this. They printed up their natal chart and they laminated it, and then using like dry erase markers, they would color in the transits for the day. I want you to pay attention. It's hard for me, gosh, it's hard for me to move my cursor in Zoom. But I want you to pay attention to the big triangle on the left side of the middle chart. So if you see the chart that has the yellow lines and the blue lines, notice that the triangle on the left-hand side, that's the spleen center or the self-awareness center in quantum human design. Notice that it's colored in. Now, if you go up to the top left tiny chart, that's the natal chart, and the tiny chart that's on the right-hand side is the transit chart. Notice that on the left-hand natal chart, that spleen center is open. It's white, right? And I want you to notice that it's also open on the right-hand side. But notice that when you see the open chart on the left-hand side, it has two gates hanging down from the bottom, right? Those are called hanging gates. Wherever you have a hanging gate in your chart, that's where you are designed to make connections with other people. We're always drawn to people who have the other half of a channel, right? We have half, we're always attracted to people who have the other half. That's an interesting configuration for us. Sometimes the planets bring us the other half. And so in this case, we'll see that in the transits, the planets brought the 54, which is the other half of the 32. And so that, if you're looking at this chart in the middle and you see the spleen center, that's the triangle on the left, you'll see that there's a full channel connecting the spleen to the root center, which is the square at the bottom. You'll see that half of it is blue on the 32 and half of it is yellow on the 54. The yellow comes from the transit. The 32 is in the natal chart. Anytime a transit brings us a gate that fills in a channel, it's going to automatically give you the experience. It does not change your natal chart. This is important to remember because sometimes I hear people say, well, I'm a manifester for a year because of the transits. Your natal chart doesn't change unless you have like a near-death experience. Your natal chart is always going to stay the same. But in this case, if this was your chart, the transits would be bringing you a gate that would give you the experience, or you would feel like you had a defined spleen during this transit. Now, do you have a defined spleen? No. Does it make the openness and the amplification of the openness go away? No. But you will feel some of the themes of having a defined spleen because of the transit, which means in this case, because the spleen center is all about helping us learn how to regulate fear, that I would say, if this was my client, I would say during this transit, you're going to learn how to manage fear. You're going to probably get some fear triggered in you, courtesy of the planets, and you're going to have to learn how to regulate yourself. And that's the lesson that the planets are bringing you. So sometimes we have short-term transits. That's a short-term transit because that transit was brought by the gate 54, which is in the Earth, which the 54 being highlighted by the Earth is, in this case, is like a 6-day transit. But when we talk about some of the bigger planets that are moving, like Gemini, like Uranus, or like Neptune, or Pluto, those are very, very, very slow moving planets. And so when slow moving planets bring you a transit that gives you the flavor of having definition in a center that you normally have open, suddenly that becomes a really big long-term theme to be aware of. So I want you to be aware of that as we go through looking at some of the gates of Uranus and Uranus in Gemini, that for some of you, that might be bringing you a long-term transit that's going to give you a long season or a long cycle in your life that's going to cause you to have some lessons in the center that might be picking up the flavor of definition courtesy of the transits. Now, here's something else to think about, something that I want you to really understand. And that is, if you have an open center and it's getting defined by a transit, so in that case, if we go back to this thing, if this person who has an open spleen is experiencing a transitory definition in her spleen center, that means that part of her lesson is to learn how to regulate herself, how to stay self-regulated in that energy center, no matter what's going on around you. Anything we have open in the chart brings us lessons of learning how to self-regulate. So if you look at your chart and you look at, what do I have open? Whatever you have open is what you are here to learn to self-regulate. That's where you are learned to hold on to your own perspective, your own baseline energy, no matter what's going on around you. So it's really good to understand when you get, a definition courtesy of the transits, and you know that everybody's having this theme playing out in their life and everybody's experiencing it differently, and maybe they're going a little bit cuckoo with it, right? That your job is to go, okay, cool, that's the transits. I don't have to bite the hook. I don't have to go down the rabbit hole with everybody. I can stay here in my own energy and self-regulate, right? That's your big lesson in your openness. And that's true whether it's coming in from the transits, that's true whether you're experiencing it from relationships, and no matter what, when you have these energies, your job is to learn to self-regulate in your openness. If you have something that's defined in your chart and the transit is already defining it, so you already have it defined, and the transits are also defining it. So what happens is that becomes a theme in your outer world. And now you're seeing this theme reflected back at you everywhere, right? Everybody's living out this theme. And suddenly it's feeling like, wow, this theme keeps coming up in my life. And the job that you have when your definition gets connected to other people's definitions, or your definition gets emphasized by the planet. So if a planet is transiting on something that you already have, the purpose of that transit is to teach you how to love and accept that part of yourself. Okay, so right now, for example, Neptune is transiting the gate 25. That is a gate that is on the G center. It is the gate where our higher purpose lives. And if you already have that 25 defined, then your job is to learn to love and accept your higher purpose, to not resist it, to not fight it, to not judge it, to not get up in your head with it, but to really, really learn to align with, love, and accept that part of yourself.